What's up, guys? Gary here, back with another thought. This time we're going to talk about what are some tools that you should have or be aware of if you're starting to get into the UI field. You could say UI, UX, but that bugs the crap out of me because they're two very separate things. So we're just going to say the UI field to start. So, what tools do you need to get started? And the reality of it is, you can honestly get started with free tools that are out there, so you don't need to invest a ton of money. But anyway, here are some of the ones that I think you should have in your toolkit if you're going to be a UI designer, at least entering the field. So, first, UI design, in my mind, you break it down into a few different stages, and you should have a tool for each stage. Right, the same tool could be across multiple stages, but you should have a tool you use for each stage. So you've got, on the very start of it, you have the ideation phase. This is where you're taking notes, you're doing low fidelity sketches, whiteboarding, stuff like that. Wireframes, I would even fit into the ideation stage because it's loose and it's rough and whatnot. Then you've got the high fidelity stage where you're starting to make your screen actually look real or your design look real. And then finally you have the prototype phase where it's adding interaction and click-throughs and right, all that to make it feel real. And then from there you can go on to, handoff and things like that. But we're just going to focus on what tools should you have for your ideation, and what tools should you have for your high fidelity, and then what tools should you have for your prototyping. So let's get into it. First, for the ideation stage, I highly recommend two different tools depending on your need. The first one is Microsoft Onenote. Shocking, I know, but Onenote actually does a fantastic job of not only being a note-taking tool, but if you have an iPad Pro with a Apple Pencil or any iPad that can use a pencil right or stylus, or you have like a Surface with a stylus, any digital tool with a stylus, even a Galaxy Note with a stylus, right? OneNote has a fantastic ink engine for drawing, so it just looks, there's just something about the way it does line weights that looks right. So it's great if you're doing wireframing or just quick sketching on your own. Now say you're working with a team where you need an easy way to share or have collaboration, then I recommend a tool called Miro, M-I-R-O. Miro, it's a digital whiteboarding tool that is, again, very robust and very versatile. They've got a free plan, so you don't even have to pay any money for it, which is great. It lets you do a digital whiteboarding session. I use it with my clients all the time, and it helps me even when I'm just doing a presentation. I can quick switch over to a blank whiteboard and control the conversation through sketching. So that's kind of your ideate phase, right? You've got multiple options, but those are two that I recommend. So then we go into your high fidelity phase, your make your design look real. I'm going to focus on tools that I believe work really well or work well for mobile design primarily rather than web. Web is its own kind of beast, right? Even say if you're doing web, you can do high fidelity, but then going straight into HTML and CSS isn't the worst idea in the world. But so let's focus on mobile. In mobile, there are a couple options. I'd say it really comes down to the three that I recommend people when they talk, and now a fourth one is kind of making its way into the mix, but not really yet, is Sketch, Adobe XD, and then Figma. And then the runner-up, if you will, that's starting to be the up-and-comer is Framer Web, which is kind of interesting and has some unique stuff to it. But let's talk through them. So Sketch, in the UI-specific tool space, Sketch is probably the one that, at this point, most people acknowledge as being the forerunner of interface-focused tools. It's the granddaddy that almost everyone knows how to use. It's got a ton of plugins and libraries and stuff. I really like the pricing model on it where you pay for a license, you get a year of updates, but then you get to keep the last version you had and keep using it if you don't want to pay for it, rather than a pure subscription model where you lose the software as soon as you stop paying for it. To me, that's a huge plus. Downsides are, it honestly right now really sucks for doing cloud collaboration. You have to use third-party tools and stuff like that. Come on, Sketch, get with it. And I know you are. I love you, Sketch. Don't hate me. The next one is Adobe XD. I put that in the ring because Adobe in the digital tool space is a big player, right? And yeah, they were late to the game, and yeah, they fell behind, and yeah, they stuck with Photoshop and Illustrator as the interface tools for way too long, and now they're paying for it. But they're investing heavily in XD to try to make up for lost time, and it really shows. So if you use XD, it has a lot of nice touches, it has some rough edges still, but in general, I think that XD has the most potential out of any of the tools I'm talking about, because it really does feel like it's a company that knows how to make digital tools, really trying to make a good tool. They have a free plan, if I remember right. I haven't checked in a little bit, but they make it affordable for XD. So that's number 2. Number 3 is Figma. Figma is kind of the new hot buzz, if you will, in the tool space. Personally, I tried it. My team tried it. It wasn't for us because the niche that it fills, one, is free, which makes it a great option for anybody. But if you're really going hard, the kind of sweet spot for that one is Figma, in my mind, is when you're working with multiple designers in the same file doing collaboration. That's where I think its sweet spot is. But still, because it's free and it is a good design tool, if you're new to the space, it's a great way of getting started, especially because a lot of companies are starting to switch their teams over to Figma because of that cloud collaboration factor. Okay, so then now we get to prototyping. This is where you're adding interaction. This is where you're making it so you can click through each one of these. So Sketch, Figma, and XD all have prototyping features built into them that are, quite frankly, they're okay. They get the job done. They're not my favorite things in the world, but they're rather simplistic. You can do some cool stuff. You can make it convincing enough. And for most people, that's going to be good enough, is that you can click through, you can make simple scroll fields, things like that. If you really want to make something more convincing animation-wise right now, that's where I'd recommend Framer Web of all things. Currently, I feel like Framer Web, out of the ones that I've tried, gave me the most robust interactions for the least amount of effort. So I could make something look really flashy, if you will, or I could prototype specific swipe gestures, easier page controls, things like that. It was easier than in some of the other tools. So that's where I recommend for prototyping, actually, Framer Web. My go-to used to be Framer Classic, if you're willing to take the curve there, but it really feels like Framer's basically abandoned Framer Classic. They do occasional updates, but it's not getting any new features, and it's gonna go the way of the dodo. Anyway, so there you go. If you're brand new getting into design, the UI field, and you're trying to wonder what tools should I learn, especially if you're going for an interview, or what are companies using, that's kind of how I sum it up. Is you need something to show that you can ideate and do whiteboarding, especially right now. Digital and being able to remotely do that is a huge plus. Then you've got your wireframing stage, which again, I use the same digital whiteboarding tools for. You could use other specialized tools for that, like OmniGraffle and Balsamic, or Axure. Those are ones that some people use for your wireframes. Again, I think just sketch it out and then go straight into your prototyping and high fidelity tool. Usually they're going to be the same thing. And the last part, once you get more and more into it, which we could talk about, is tools for handing off to engineers and developers. But anyway, guys, that's my simple thought on the matter. Let me know if you have any thoughts, opinions, disagreements, agreements. What should I look at next? And we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.